new year, are staying healthy and safe. Um, Excited to see what great things 2022 will bring for the YAC. We have a few new members, but before we dive into introductions and our wonderful agenda for tonight, you all know I have to go over this extremely long FOIA script. So bear with me as I read a lot too much. All right. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, the Young Adult Advisory Council, further known as the Council, needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask for your patience. First, because each member of the Council is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and is at an appropriate level for all other members. Accordingly, to conduct the roll call and ask each member participating in this meeting, to conduct the roll call, I will ask each member of the council participating in this meeting to state your name, the location from which you're participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. All right. I'm Denver Stephenger, calling in from Fairfax. Sam Niner.
Hello, this is Sam Niner. I'm calling from Springfield.
Great, Sam. Richmond Hill.
Hello, this is Richmond Hill calling in from Dumfries, Virginia.
Thank you. Natalia Denise Moody. Don't see Natalia. Sarah Bufano.
Sarah Bufano, Fairfax, Virginia.
Kiana Simpkins. Casey Judge. I don't think I saw Casey either.
She's going to be out today.
Okay. Judith Kupla.
Sujit Coppola calling in from Vienna, Virginia.
Thank you. Anna McCoy. I don't think I saw Anna. Jessica Sun.
Jessica Sun calling in from Vienna, Virginia.
Thank you. Dini Muhammad, sorry.
Dini Mahmood calling in from Annandale, Virginia.
Thank you. Eddie Sandova. Do we have Eddie called in yet? We can circle back to him. And then Manor Zafar.
Manor Zafar calling in from Springfield, Virginia.
Thank you, everyone. So great to hear your voices. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to my fellow council member, Sarah Bufano, so that I can be heard to make a requisite motion. There you go, Sarah. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by every other member of the council.
I second that.
I think you have to ask all in favor.
Oh, sorry. You think I remember by now. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any dissenter? Anyone who doesn't? Any nays?
Perfect. And we'll circle back to Eddie to make sure we can hear him. Oh, it looks like he might have called in, actually. The call-in user. All right. Second, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically and what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for the council to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meetings, and that as such, the FOIA's usual procedures, which require physical assembly of the council and physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the council may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated video and audio conferencing line, and that the public may access the meeting by registering through the meeting link on the Young Adults Advisory Council at www.fairfaxcounty.gov/economic-initiatives/young-adults-advisory-council-YAA. Or by calling 1-844-621-3956 and entering access code 2336-543-3378. It is so moved. Sarah, I need you to ask for a second and then do the favors.
Oh, does anyone second that?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Great.
All right. Finally, it is next required that all matters addressed by today's agenda must address the emergency itself. Are necessary for Fairfax County government to continue and/or the statutory requirements necessary to continue the operations and discharge and lawful purposes of the council. It is so moved. Unless there's any dissension, I don't think there is. All right. I think next up is just recognizing any members of the public. I don't believe, Graham, that we didn't receive any public comment since our last meeting. I don't believe there's anyone from the public in attendance. Do we want to test Eddie's phone line real quick?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Eddie, I'm going to try to call you. I see your phone number there, so I'm going to try to unmute you, see if we can recognize your voice. Hold on 1 second. So, Eddie, you might be on mute on your phone. Can you hear us right now through your phone?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Great. Where are you calling in from, Eddie? Eddie, can you hear us? Eddie, can you hear us? Are you there? Well, we'll keep trying.
Okay.
I know he's there.
So before we go on to the parking presentation, I do want to introduce our two newest members. We have Dr. Richmond Hill from NOVA and VCC.
Hello.
Hi, Eddie. Can you state where you're calling in from?
Hello. Can anyone hear me?
Eddie, we can hear you just fine. Can you state where you're calling in from?
Yeah, I'm calling in my phone. I'm calling from. Oh yeah. By the way, my name is Eddie Sandola, and I'm the member of a Story District. And I'm calling from my home in Chantilly because right now I'm at the. I wish I could tell you, but I'm not gonna tell. Hey Dan, I'm gonna send you a text of where I come from and privately, so respectful.
Okay, sounds
I'm
good.
looking
Thanks,
forward for
Eddie.
the meeting.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Eddie. So as I was saying, we have two new members, Dr. Richmond Hill representing NOVA and VCC, which I'm really excited about since we've talked a lot about education and outreach and meeting people where they are. And then we have Sam Niner from the Springfield District, who I haven't gotten to know yet, but I hope to get to know very soon. So Dr. Hill, I'll pass the mic over to you for a quick introduction, and then we'll pass it over to Sam.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Richmond Hill, and I'm with Northern Virginia Community College in the Office of Enrollment Management and Student Success, formerly Student Services, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Student Support Services. And under my area is Title IX, the Office of Wellness and Mental Health, Financial Stability and Advocacy, Disability Support Services, Financial Aid, Veterans and Military Services, and two of our grant programs. One of them is Great Expectations, which supports our our students who were in foster care, and the other one is our C Campus grant, which is a federal grant which supports parenting and pregnant parents and supports them by way of child care vouchers and other support services. And so happy to be here this evening. I have been in the Northern Virginia area for 21 years now, originally from North Carolina, and moved here after graduate school, where I started my work in student services in Prince William School District. And then after a few years there in student support services, came to NOVA. During my first stint at NOVA as counselor, coordinator of first year programs, associate dean, and then went back to Prince William County Schools at the central office to work in student support services and secondary counseling services. And then most recently came back to NOVA this past summer in July. So happy to be here, happy to learn from this group, ready to contribute and go from there and make things better.
Great. Thank you so much. Sam.
Hi, my name is Sam. I'm a senior and I go to South County High School. I am someone who's been a part of the community. I plan to go to George Mason in 2022, this year in the fall of 2023, I believe. No, 2022. And I plan to go to study political science, and I was interning with Harold Pion's campaign for Virginia delegate, who is now the deputy director of Virginia's inclusion and diversity under Glenn Youngkin.
Great, Sam. Thanks glad to have you on the team. All right, so we're gonna jump into the next part of our agenda, the parking reimagined. I've seen a lot of articles, especially in Reston Now, and the patch about our upcoming parking changes. So I'm excited for it. I'm not sure who's presenting, but I will just pass over the mic to our Fairfax County reps and let you all take the floor.
Mike, you're
Michael?
unmuted.
Yeah.
You're muted right now.
Apologies. I think Owen's running the presentation tonight for me. Once we get started on that, there we go. So I just want to wish everyone a good evening and thanks for your interest in the Parking Reimagined project. My name is Michael Davis and I'm the project manager for this parking effort. I also have with me tonight Austin Gastrell and Bill Mayland, who's with the Department of Planning and Development, and they are my co-leads on this project. I'm with Land Development Services in Fairfax County, and Bill and Austin are with the county's Planning and Development Office. An examination of our off-street parking regulations in the county's zoning ordinance is long overdue. As will be described in our staff presentation, technology and other factors have changed auto parking demand, and the parking that is supplied for this should adapt to these changes. Parking should not be a given, but instead should be considered a land resource that competes with other values when land is developed. The project is in its initial stages of engagement, and staff is seeking input and perspectives on parking. The feedback is essential in our examination of parking and developing our project priorities. Your comments and conversations tonight will provide important background for the project. And you can stay on the slide. Most people own one or more vehicles and take for granted that they will be able to park these vehicles in their travels. Most of the time, people don't generally think about parking unless they can't find a convenient spot or there's an unexpected number of vehicles parked near their home. Yet parking is everywhere around us. Most every land use in the county requires some parking. When people drive and park, they're focused on finding a convenient space. They don't often notice the gray, empty edges that rarely have vehicles parked there. A key purpose of this project is to have people think about parking a little differently, to begin to think of it as a resource. And when you do that, you begin to consider the importance of that resource relative to other important elements that we all care about, such as the environment, affordability, and land design. When parking has a community value, then you can think about how that value should be weighed against other initiatives. Parking is a land use, just like residences, office buildings, and shopping centers. This project intends to imagine how best to utilize that land resource. Next slide, please. While the county is moving toward multimodal development that encourages more transportation options, such as walking, biking, and transit, driving is and will remain a common activity. This, of course, will require us to park these vehicles. Therefore, providing parking with land use activities will still be necessary. This project recognizes that parking will continue to be supplied. However, it's important that parking be sized to the average demand for it. The term that was created for this is right-sizing parking, which is to not underbuild or overbuild parking supply for a land use. While we strive to right-size parking and requirements, we also know there are places and uses that present parking challenges. This project will take in that information and look for ways to address those areas. Next slide, please. Here I'll provide some background information on some elements of parking that hopefully gives some insight on the operation of and influences on parking and the role these play in considering changes to the requirements. Parking has times of high and low demand. This can occur by the hour, day, month, or year. People know that during the holiday season, more people are out shopping and this increases parking demand. In January and February, less people are shopping and parking is freely available. While there can be times when it is difficult to find a parking space, parking should be constructed to address average demand. Within the county, there are places where you need a car for almost any activity beyond your home, and there are places where there are options that don't require a car. The character and location of a site can influence parking demand. In urbanized and higher density transit-oriented areas, options that allow less reliance on personal vehicles are available. It can even be possible to be car-free. This lowers the need for dedicated parking areas. Also, there are development areas known as mixed use that contain residences, places of work, shopping, and entertainment options. These types of combined uses can reduce the need for vehicle ownership for people who live or work there. Because the mixed use area has these closely located options, residents or employees can walk or bike. As one potential result, residents in these areas may decide to own only one vehicle instead of two, which reduces overall parking demand. Because parking is a resource, it can be operated to enhance its value. An example of this is shared parking. Rather than building the minimum required parking for an apartment building, an office building, and a retail center located on the same site, the demand for each of those uses can be studied and a smaller parking area can be built that provides enough parking for all these uses based on hourly demand. Looking now and toward the future, parking demand is changing with technology and people's behavior. Everyone's familiar with online ordering and home delivery of pretty much anything. This reduces parking demand when you don't have to go out and shop or eat. Also, even before COVID, remote working was growing annually. As we transition away from COVID, remote working is expected to continue to occur. These trends and other technologies to come will continue to influence the need for parking. Next slide, please. Parking areas should be considered a resource to the entire community. It's land area that we have made a choice to use as parking. It could have been used for something else. When we consider the development of land, there are many elements that can be weighed, such as the environment, site design, and affordability. These are balanced with the need to provide parking, and sometimes the parking supply itself creates a need to address its effects, like stormwater runoff. Many times, parking requirements for a site control how a site can be used. Questions we're asking with this project are the extent of parking's role in land use. How much parking do we really need? What are the trade-offs for less or more parking on a site? Where can we balance parking supply with other site use possibilities that will provide a community benefit? Next slide, please. We want people to begin to think about priorities related to parking. Should a large amount of convenient parking be the ideal? Or can we think about balancing car parking against other desirable features, like a quality urban streetscape that is inviting to safely walk and bike, or more open green space to enjoy cooling shade? Perhaps this gray slate could be redeveloped to trade a low-performing asset into a project that will generate added tax revenue to the county that can be applied to achieving our values. Next slide. Every change has a consequence. If we are to look at a current problem with parking supply, how could we address it? Adding more parking is a solution, but what effects might that have? In any land use option, parking becomes part of a cost-benefit decision. What are the ideals we should be considering when making these decisions? Looking at the photo in the slide, if we wanted to add more parking to address the high demand depicted here, do we want to remove those trees in the background to add it? Or would having those trees be important enough to tolerate this amount of parking demand for a few hours a day? These are among the questions we are asking the public to think about as they view this presentation. Next slide. Community engagement is a critical element of this project. We're seeking meaningful feedback from all elements of the community who have personal experiences and thoughts about parking. But the community also includes business owners and tenants, land developers, nonprofit organizations, and religious assembly groups. Our engagement on this project will include those folks as well. We've learned during the pandemic that we can reach more members of the community with our tech resources. Nearly everyone has access to a smartphone, and many are able to participate electronically, which has opened new doors for remote and mobile participation and feedback. Our project website will be a robust resource for information to allow the community to participate and monitor the project's progress. We also have more traditional technologies, such as cable channel 16, to use for communication. We will engage as many community members as possible during this project. Project is about midway through. It's intended to last about 12 to 18 months. During this time, we'll gather community feedback in 2 distinct stages, but always be open to receiving information and discussion. First step is underway now, where we're seeking community feedback on the thoughts and ideas that we are looking at for parking. And then the second will be when we take that feedback and develop proposals for your consideration. This will occur about halfway through the 18-month project period. Next slide, please. This project will focus on off-street parking and loading. We have 3 basic goals for this project: adding best practices and promising new ideas to operate parking now and in the future, increasing clarity and flexibility in the administrative language of the ordinance, which includes looking more at the context of a site or area to determine its parking needs, and streamlining parking review and approval, which includes increasing predictability of review processes, times, and outcomes. Next slide, please. The parking requirements in the zoning ordinance haven't changed a lot since 1988. When considering that, think for a moment how much has changed from a world where the internet and smartphones were not available for entertainment and business. We have teamed with 2 consultant groups, Clarion Associates and Nelson Nygaard, who both have extensive background in this effort to help us with this project. Together, we will pursue these primary activities: community engagement and feedback, examination and evaluation of best practices for parking, which includes getting information from regional and national municipalities on their programs and administration of parking to see how they can apply here, evaluation of our own requirements to see where adjustments can be proposed and best practices applied, and ultimately proposals for modification to the zoning ordinance will be developed for community, planning commission, and board consideration. Next slide, please. Our consultants will provide valuable information on the operation and dynamics of parking from a national and regional perspective that can have application here in the county. They will analyze and identify current and future trends that will guide our recommendations. They'll also identify strategic approaches to consider when thinking about the provision of parking, looking at flexibility and context to help determine rates and requirements. Next slide, please. As indicated previously, we've begun our first steps on the project, and this part of the project has included a great deal of engagement with the community, and we've also been getting feedback from other jurisdictions, both regionally and nationally, on the operation of their parking regulations and best practices. We've also begun community town halls and more specific discussions with county committees and other focus groups, such as yours, to gain background and perspectives on parking here in the county. As we proceed, we will continue to get critical input from all these sources of information as we now begin to develop proposed changes to the zoning ordinance. Once we have a proposal, then we will come back and get feedback on that. Next slide, please. We have a project website that will be continually updated with information and opportunities to participate in the Parking Reimagined project. In closing, we'd like to thank you once again for your interest in this project and look forward to hearing about your perspectives and experiences regarding off-street parking in the county.
Thank you, Michael. I have a feeling you might have done this presentation a few times, but I appreciate you doing again for us. I will open the floor to any questions, comments, insights.
I could start us off if you want. Michael, in your experience parking, in Fairfax County, has the demand across the decades for parking across different uses, residential, multifamily, single family, commercial, et cetera. Is there a general sense that demand for parking is in decline or is it increasing, or is it kind of staying the same relative to the way that things have been in the past? Just curious if there's some trends that we've kind of recognized across time that are kind of playing into how we go about setting out rates for the future.
Well, yes. And it's been somewhat mixed in the sense that in looking at, for example, retail development with the changes in online sales and other factors, there's been a decline in retail parking overall. And we recently updated our zoning ordinance kind of ahead of this project. There are 4 regional malls in Fairfax County, and we looked at those and saw that there was a vast amount of parking at these centers that was being unused. And so we made some changes to the ordinance to allow for a lower parking rate for those regional centers, which can provide opportunities for redevelopment of those parking areas. So it's kind of a win-win situation in the sense that we get some potential economic, environmental, and other benefits associated with redevelopment of the sites, while also recognizing that parking demand for those types of uses has declined over time. But then on the other side of the coin, we are looking pretty extensively at townhouse development in the county. Over time, the parking supply requirements have grown. So we have a lot of older townhome communities that are experiencing parking problems because the amount of parking that was provided under the regulations 30 or 40 years ago is not adequate for the amount of vehicle ownership and parking demand that's occurring today. So the townhouse rates have come up over time. And the townhouse, what we're looking at now is whether the current townhouse minimum rate continues to be appropriate or whether further changes should be made. So that's one, those are 2 kind of diametric examples. But the other element that we're also looking at very closely is the context of development, in the sense that in a urbanized area that has a lot of transit and multimodal opportunities, there is less parking demand because there are more options that are walkable, bikeable, and so forth, that allow people to make a choice to live there who don't need as many vehicles or may not even need a vehicle. So, and then there are other areas of the county that are more suburban and rural where people need vehicles more often. And so part of the thought process associated with what we're looking at is maybe having a sort of tiered approach or something like that, where some areas that are higher density would have lower parking requirements, and some areas that are lower density would remain essentially the same or have more minor changes to the minimum parking requirements. So that's one of the big takeaways from the feedback that we've gotten so far from other jurisdictions and from the consultant is this contextual approach to parking.
I can chime in. I've got 2 questions. The first one is trying to understand, with COVID, a lot of people have been driving instead of taking public transit. So have you noticed any change in that? And how are you, if at all, translating that into your plan or working around that in your plan? And then my second question is kind of on a similar note to what you were just saying. So I'm really loving the fact that, you're talking about like multimodal and like getting like the best return on investment in the current land that's been dedicated to parking, because I'm a big supporter of like mixed use and more, having more public transit. I mean, if Fairfax County is going to continue to build and grow as a region, it needs to, to be able to handle the influx, and public transit is a good way to do that. Plus the environment. So my question for you is, I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the more creative approaches you have to the parking. So, I'm thinking like, instead of building flat, building up to utilize the space more, or like, maybe having something on the top, right? Like, I've seen people with like gardens on the top of parking lots, or, retail or something. So can you talk about what, if any, plans or considerations are you making from that aspect? Thank you.
Sure. Well, to address the COVID question, that's been one of the unexpected challenges with this project, is the timing of our examination of the parking ordinance relative to the changes that have occurred during the COVID time period. So, for example, we have less demand at offices because people are working remotely, but then we're kind of at this ultimate demand scenario for parking at, say, multifamily buildings and townhouses because people were staying home to work from home. So what we did in trying to examine how we were going to evaluate data for the project, we decided to take the trends that were occurring prior to COVID, because we felt as though at some point in the future, it's going to take some time to wash out, but at some point we'll return to a more normal behavior pattern that was occurring prior to COVID. Although there is some debate about, for example, will people still continue to work remotely at a higher rate than the pre-COVID circumstances? But there was a trend toward working remotely even prior to COVID. So we were kind of trying to use that experience to project outward from here. So we did take that into account, and we are trying to rationalize our data to make sure that we're not anticipating too much change with the circumstances that had occurred with COVID. To the second part of your question about garage design and other types of creative approaches, clearly for, when you're constructing parking, building surface parking is less expensive than building structured parking by a magnitude of 10. And so what we hear from the development community is that they want to try to minimize their cost. And what we are trying to do as part of our thinking with the project is see where there are places where we don't need as much parking as is recommended today. And we've already taken steps in that direction by, for example, in Tyson's, there are no minimum requirements near metro stations. As an example, we have parking maximums in Tyson's, so you can't build more parking than the maximum level prescribed in the ordinance. And in other transit-oriented areas, we have lower minimum rates than the rest of the county. So kind of heading into that framework anyway of more contextualized approaches to parking. So the project will continue to explore those and potentially expand them. We also, while not really related to the Parking Reimagined project, we're certainly trying to achieve more utilization of parking areas in a county realm. And that does factor in somewhat to the project. But as far as trying to reduce parking and reduce the footprint of parking, but also for existing parking areas and structured parking areas, there is more of a push toward trying to get green roofs and solar panels on the roofs of parking garages that are probably the least used segment of the park. It has to top out somewhere, but people don't frequently drive to the top of the parking garage and park. So repurposing those areas is something that we are looking at. There's a parking garage that's being constructed in the I-66 corridor where they're going to put solar panels on the roof, on the top deck of that garage. So The county does have a solar initiatives and other green initiatives. And so I think those could translate well to the top decks of parking lots and surface parking areas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. And then with the larger parking structures, are we considering just doing a private contract for those and leasing out land? Or is the county going to still, what they did in the metro, station with parking? Or has that even been considered just for the possibility of if that parking area, 50 years down the line is still not needed, we can convert that land to public space?
Well, the county, I'm not even sure that the county, I think the county operates one garage, and that's at Reston Wheelie Station. There might be a couple of others, but most of the Metro garages are operated by Metro. So the county really has like a low investment in parking overall. One of the things that we have been talking about is trying to encourage more county investment in that realm. And that, for example, in Tyson's, most of the parking that's constructed is privately owned. And some of that parking is available to the public and some of it is fee-based. You have to pay to park and it's operated by a private company. So what has been suggested is maybe the county look at the possibility of building parking garages and operating parking garages. It's kind of in the discussion stages at this point. I don't know. Our parking project wouldn't preclude that, but it's certainly something that could be explored. The other thing that the county is beginning to explore is on-street metered parking. Currently, they're looking at Tyson's and Reston to try to implement some metered parking projects. There are a number of hoops to go through in order to get that approved and to operate it. The county really doesn't have any sort of infrastructure at the moment to be able to manage metered parking, but that's currently being explored by another agency, our County Department of Transportation. So that's another thing that may come to fruition over the next 5 years or so to be able to establish metered parking in certain areas of the county.
Great, thank you. Are
Looks
there
like
any other?
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Denver, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I was just going to say Scott seems to have been trying to raise his hand.
I was just gonna to talk to Mike, one of the projects, and so the county does own the garage at Wheelie Reston Station East, and then we will be owning and managing a couple of the new garages that are going with the phase 2 of the Silver Line. But a better example of kind of Mike's thought is the county's investment in the parking garage in downtown Springfield. So this is right across from Springfield Plaza, which will be a county-owned multi-story garage that integrates sort of the slug line options that have been operating there in a while. And that might be, an overlap of in a potential mixed use development or in a maybe more denser area, revitalization area that could take advantage of some of that shared parking that Mike mentioned.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. All right, I know we're 5 minutes over time. So I wanted to see if there's any other questions we have the council. Time's not a thing, we can make it up elsewhere. But are there any other questions? Hearing none, I want to thank our wonderful county folks. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sure you'll hear plenty of public opinion over the next year. Hopefully ours will be the nicest or some of the nicest you'll receive. Well, hopefully not. Hopefully they're all that great. But we appreciate all that you do. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely keep in touch with the process with y'all.
Yeah, and we can, as I said, it's kind of a 2-stage engagement process that we're going through. So when we have a proposal, we're going to go back out. So we can always come back to this group and talk about specific proposals that we have for public consumption. So we may see you again, in the next few months to talk about our next stage of the project.
We will look forward to it. Oh, thanks for dropping the link. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We wish you a great, healthy rest of your year, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
So per our agenda, we do, oh, I don't want to leave the event. That's not what I want to do. We do have a debrief for 10 minutes. I don't know if we want to wait till the debrief at the end, just to make sure we get through the rest of the agendas. Anyone have objections for me changing that? No. Okay, awesome. So I just want to go into the work programs in first half of 2022. Sam and Miss Dr. Hill, this is something new for you all, but we discussed what we want to do for the first 6 months of 2022 to make sure they are SMART goals, right? And that they're actually attainable and really focused. As you saw tonight, we are usually proposed with larger projects, right? Which is great information to have, but how do we change that into action and ways for us to influence the board of supervisors? We did ask folks to send in their topics that they hope to focus on in the first half of 2022. Graham, do we have anything? Awesome.
We do, yeah. Sorry, I was scrambling. For whatever reason, I couldn't get PDF to get off my screen. So anyway, I have it now. We got a couple, but what I was thinking is since we only got a couple from a couple of folks, it might be good to just kind of go round robin style, Denver, if you think that's a good idea, and just hear about what people's kind of top priorities are for the council for the next 6 months. If you think that would be a kind of a good way of going about it, and I know that we have in the past we've had these two subcommittees that have focused on planning, infrastructure, and transportation, and then the second one has been focused on community outreach, engagement, and inclusion. And so if you've been a part of one of those groups in the past and you want to stay within your subcommittee, or you want to switch things up, we have some new members. So this would be a time to think about, do I want to stay in that subcommittee and think through, continue with those topics, or if you want to switch over and do something different this time around. Now, I think now's the time to kind of think about that. So I don't know if we have to finalize that tonight in terms of subcommittees, but if you can, just let me know, and Denver know what subcommittee you want to be on. But
I would like us to finalize, since we're going to talk about scheduling, and then we could possibly do the 2-hour block, which I'll talk about in a moment. Graham knows what I'm talking about, starting in February.
Yeah,
so Dr. Hill and Sam, I'm going to put you on the back end of the list so you all can hear, other folks and weigh in. But Sarah, you're the, have your camera on. What are your 3 things you hope for us to do for 2022? And then we'll popcorn it.
Yeah, give me a second. I need to look in my sent emails to what I told Graham because it was a few weeks ago now. Drum roll, please. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I would like to remain on the Planning, Infrastructure, and Transportation Committee. So my 3 things are very specific to that subcommittee. And it would be 1, no surprise from my previous question, improving public transit connectivity in Fairfax County. An example I had of like a deliverable or something that we could do is maybe we could map it out, buses, Fairfax City Connector, buses, Fairfax County buses, Metro, all that jazz. And see which areas are better connected than others and where the gaps are and see what the county is doing to fill those gaps. Number 2, creating more mixed use spaces. Just in case people here aren't sure what that is, but it's, where there's like retail and apartments and like Mosaic District is a great example, but it's kind of like an urban feel and like a little bubble, parks and trails, but also restaurants and businesses. And then last but not least, an affordable housing / diverse price point housing strategy with more affordable places for first-time buyers. So, this runs the gamut for me. It's not just low income, but also like middle income because Fairfax County is expensive. So, being able to get the diversity of incomes and have more of that, diverse, affordable housing strategy.
Right.
So those are my 3.
Awesome. Thank you. Who
Am
do you
I
want
supposed to call on somebody or are you going to?
That'd be great.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. I'm going to call on Jessica.
Hi, so we're talking about which committees we want to be for the next upcoming year. I like the current committee I'm on. I like to stay in the education committee and outreach.
Awesome. And do you have 3 initiatives that you hope for the council to focus on in the first 6 months of 2022?
I did not prepare that. Sorry about that, but I can follow up later.
Yeah, of course. That sounds good. And I'll just actually go down the list of probably easier. Judith, do you have insights for us? Mr. Kupla?
Can you hear us?
We cannot hear you, no.
No, we can't hear you.
No, and I don't even see that his mic is connected on Teams. So Judith, you might have to
Hear me
hop on. Oh, there you go.
Good.
Oh, perfect. It just took the old restart to fix that. As far as the committee assignment, I'm happy to stay on my current committee, so talent outreach and engagement. I think we have a lot of pending work and excited to build on the progress from last year. As far as the portfolio areas that I'm hoping our team can kind of focus on for 2022, I don't have 3. I'll give you 1 though. One area that I've been, reading up on recently in terms of the county's involvement is ESG investing. So environmental, social, and governance investing in terms of how this general portfolio area can relate to the work that my subcommittee is focused on in the form of talent outreach and education. We obviously spend a lot of time in terms of how many of the businesses, large and small, within the county interact with the population in terms of their employees and the communities in which they operate. So I think this could be a really fascinating area, especially as we think about sustainability from a regional context. How can we also tie in the threads of environmental, social, and governance factors, particularly from a financial standpoint? So if that's something that the wider team would want to consider, I'd be happy to talk more about it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to pass it over to Deanie.
Yeah, so similar to Sujit and Jessica, I'd like to stay on talent outreach and engagement. And in terms of bringing 3 ideas, I do have one, like Sujit. I was thinking possibly in terms of community, working around ways to, with the new governor's agenda around education and making sure that like the youth's voice is pretty much still heard.
So student advocacy and government operations. Does that
Yeah,
sound
for the most part, yeah, in light of the new administration, yeah.
We can't say that because we're not political. But I understand you. I get you.
Cut the last part out, please.
I get you, Judy. Thank you so much. Lenore. Lenore, are you there?
Lenore, can you hear us? Lenore, I'm going to try to unmute you, see if we can get you. Lenore, can you hear us?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I can hear you. It's just a little spotty.
Not
But
a problem.
I would like to be on the planning and infrastructure and transportation committee, and like Sarah said, I do like the idea of public transit and mixed use spaces. Also affordable housing, but I want to understand, like dive into a little more about what we mean by affordable housing. Like, do we mean more affordable rent, or are we looking in the direction of home ownership, which is something I think would be of value to look into?
Absolutely. I know the county has varying definitions when it comes to ownership, renting, workforce housing, all that great stuff. So I'm assuming Casey still wants to be on that committee as well. So we will definitely work and try to get folks on that committee to kind of break that down so you all can do a little more analysis on affordable housing in Virginia or in Fairfax County.
And Casey did email me and said she wanted to continue with the pit as well, and she had a list of things, so I can forward that along to you.
Wonderful. Eddie, are you able to unmute?
Yes, hello.
Hi, Eddie.
Hey, hey Denver, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing fine.
I'm assuming you want to be on the transportation subcommittee. Is that correct?
Yes, that's why I wanted the transportation. The reason why I want to be part of the transportation is that this is a great opportunity to learn and to make adjustments in transportation of Fairfax County on what kind of buses and cars and all other kinds of stuff, including disability rights, to make sure disabilities get and make sure access. And I want Fairfax Connected to be more accessible, like the rides. We want buses to be more easy and not make it hard for them from point A to point B. This would be interested to learn public transportation.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Eddie. I like that. I like the constant focus on ability access and different abilities being able to, obtain public access, public transportation.
Yes.
So
For
awesome.
disabilities to get point A to point B, to make it easy for them.
Awesome.
Thank
Well,
you.
consider yourself on the pit. All right, and I will push this over to Dr. Hill. I don't know if you have a preference, if you're just throw me wherever, but I'll toss it over to you. And looks like you're muted.
Dr. Hill, I think you're still muted.
My apologies. I think naturally I should be a part of the education group. I do just the basic needs support for NOVA students fall under my area, and just seeing the trends, affordable transportation and affordable rent for our students when we talk about housing is definitely a need and something to be focused on. So those just happen to be two areas that I know affect a lot of NOVA students. And so I'll be happy to serve on the education committee as long as I can share some of my, thoughts and feedback to the other group.
Absolutely. Happy to have that. All right, and Sam.
I'm pretty much open to anything, but I am interested in the housing, and also with education itself. So I don't know if I could do two committees or.
Depends on how the next part of this conversation goes because the committees might be meeting at the same time. So if we're meeting at the same time, unless if you have a clone machine, I would love to see it as well, but it won't be possible.
Right.
But once again, like Dr. Hill alluded to, we all are sharing these resources and having a central conversation. So it's not like you will be excluded from conversations, directly impacting outreach if you're interested in transportation and affordable housing.
I would be happy to do affordable housing and yeah.
Perfect. And I will go wherever I need to balance the team out because I'm happy to do that. Okay, so my personal hopes for 2022 is for us to address the board and ask for young adults representation on at least 20 new boards and have them to form a new procedure in which young people are considered more actively for boards, authorities, and commissions. I don't think we'll have time tonight to go through that, so we'll just docket it for next month. But in the meantime, I would ask you all to look at the BACs, boards, authorities, and commissions for Fairfax County. And if there's any ones that you're like, we need someone on this group, please send them my way. I threw together a list. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's a good start because for us to be like, we want to be on all 172 is a stretch. But if we say, hey, we want to be on these 20 first, and we want these 10 to be a secondary conversation, it's more tangible for the board to start finding those appointees and making that happen.
Can I just chime in for a second? Because I know, I know that you're collecting the lists from everyone, and I know, I know I sent in my list as well, and I'm sure others have as well. It would just be so great. I mean, and this would be perfect in a spreadsheet. But it would just be so great if you could like collate it and share it with us before the next board meeting, because I would love to just have a chance to look and see, where there's like alignment or disagreement. I just would find that really helpful.
Absolutely. So I only have your list and my list. I don't know if Grandma's received any others. But yeah, send them.
I got a couple of others, so I can work with Denver, and we can put together a collated thing. So we have kind of a list of not only the subcommittee assignments, but then also the topics, because I think there were some common themes that we saw across them. So yeah, no problem.
Yeah, and same with BACs. I think if you have, we need to have someone on the affordable housing BAC, or we need someone to have on the planning commission. Definitely think we need to have a young rep on the planning commission. Please let me know, right? And we'll collate those. When it comes to subcommittees, I recognize that, how our structure in 2021 was there were 3 different meetings each month, one for each subcommittee, and then our full committee. I wanted to put it out there to see how folks feel about possibly doing a 6 to 7 and then 7 to 8. So subcommittee would be the first hour, full committee would be the second hour. So you only have to dedicate 1 night a month rather than dedicating 2 nights a month to our operations.
I like that.
Yes, yes, and yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
I like that idea.
I kind of wish it wasn't like right over dinner. That's my only but I'm also conscious, like, for the sake of Graham, that we probably shouldn't make it go much later. So I think that's fine.
I mean, we could do 6 to 7 and then 7:30 to 8:30. So folks can like take a breather.
I think if we do that, the first one will just run over, and in the end we won't get the 30 minutes.
Okay.
So I think 6 to 8. I mean, obviously other people feel free to chime in, but that's just my assumption from just the way that meetings can be at times.
One thing that we've seen with other BACs that I staff is if you start at 6:30 and then you go, really frankly, ending at 8 versus 8:30, for some people doesn't make that much of a difference. But that what you're talking about, Sarah, in terms of an actual getting home from work, or in this case, kind of decompressing from work, in your same space, because we're all at home at this point, and then being able to get something to eat and then readjust and kind of collect yourself and be ready. That sometimes that helps. You can just have that little 30-minute thing. So just another concept, another idea.
I'm sorry, I have one question. If I may pitch in, about transferring to the education committee. I'm sorry about that. But I'm very interested in education. If I could just transfer. Thank you.
Consider it done. All right, so we'll test out. February will be our test month with the 6 to 7, 7 to 8. If folks are like, I'm exhausted, we need to build in 15 to 30 minutes, we will build it in. But like the rest of this council, it is kind of our brainchild, and we can do what we want with it. So we will see what we need to do. Okay, well, we are a minute past time, so I'm going to try to be as quick as possible with officer elections. Can we pass stuff over to you, Graham, for you to host it, since Sarah and I are both,
Yeah, I'll take it from here. So we sent out a request for officers for the 2022 year. So we do this every year. It feels like we've done it a couple of times because Sarah stepped up to be vice chair for second half of 2021. But we are appointing officers for the 2022 year. We got nominations for chair, Denver, and we also got a nomination for vice chair, so Sarah Bafano. And we are currently in need of somebody who can be a secretary. One thing that I would mention. Oh, great! We got a nominee here. Excellent. I don't have to convince him. Good. Excellent. So thank you, Sam. You're a saint. what that role will entail. So just so I see your hand, so there's no backing out now at this point. Is basically during COVID times, what we're going to be doing is using that role to provide summary meeting minutes. It's not a detailed written description or anything like that. We have a transcript of every recording, so we don't need it. But it's just a summary of actions taken. And so I can give you a template that will help you, in terms of producing that. And then it's beyond that, it's if we need to record votes, on specific things, it's just having a, kind of a written record of the votes that take place. So
Sounds good. Count it done.
right, excellent. With that, so we have 3 nominations. We can also entertain any nominations that people want to float now. I know that we requested for nominations earlier, but if there's anybody that would like to run for one of these other offices, chair, vice chair, or secretary, just let us know right now. All right, so what we'll do now is we can just vote for chair. We can probably do it by acclamation, given that we have a single candidate for each. So if you can, when I ask for the votes, just say yay or nay, and then we'll move to vice chair and to secretary. So all those in favor of voting to have Denver Suppinger be the chair for 2022, please say yay.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Congratulations to Denver. Moving on to vice chair. So we have Sarah Bufano, who is our nominee for vice chair. All those in favor of her nomination, please say aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion carries as well. And then we have a nominee for secretary, Sam Niner. Any, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Great, and any opposed? That motion passes. So congratulations to our new officers for 2022. So Denver, Sarah, and Sam. Sam, thank you. I thought I was going to have to point to somebody or nominate somebody, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it much. I know we're over time, so I'm going to try to do this quickly. Graham is going on a very fun new project, has been reassigned, so he will no longer be our staff point for the yak, which breaks my heart because literally, like, he's had as much enthusiasm, if not more enthusiasm, about this committee, this council, than we have at times, and it's really formed this. So thank you, Graham, for everything. We're gonna miss you. Jarrett is gonna be our new staff person who's been listening in today. Graham, are you gonna be with us next month, or is this it?
I can probably do one more, and just in terms of transition, I might be just kind of there in the background, just to guide this thing. But thank you all for being a part of this. I've had a great time working with you all, just learning more about your interests and putting stuff together. It's been a lot of fun. So I'm working on a project that's going to command all of my comp time hours. So choice really didn't matter, but I really have appreciated working with all of you. And I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. Still with DPD. So I actually will probably
on the project. Yeah.
yeah. I was going to say, actually, Denver, I have a project related to community outreach and planning that I will probably want to see if you're interested in.
Yes. Absolutely. We would always love to hear from you.
Make sure you carry our voice forward.
Yes, please do.
I will. No, I absolutely will. This has been great. So I really have had a tremendous experience with you guys. So appreciate it.
Yeah. But Jarrett will be our new person, our staff coordinator. We'll get to know him more and more, but I might understand if you want to say hello. You're newer to the county when it comes to county government. So if you want to do a quick introduction, I know, once again, I'm sorry you're above time, but yeah, would love to hear.
Yeah, no worries, Denver. I will be succinct. Definitely going to be a tough act to follow, but Graham, he's been instrumental already with just kind of the onboarding process and helping us get posted and going through the process. It was a pleasure meeting you earlier at Denver, as well as Dr. Hill. And then, I am a part of the Department of Economic Initiatives, along with, I believe, Wendy Lemieux is on the call and Scott Sizer. So yes, I will be your main point of contact for support. The one thing that I want to mention that'll be transitioning for the next meeting in February is instead of WebEx, hopefully we get some, you know, a nice ovation on this, but we will be transitioning over to Microsoft Teams going forward for our calls. So hopefully that works for everybody.
Sounds
Good deal. Good deal. Well, really nice to meet you folks, and yeah, I'm really excited for this opportunity to work with you guys, and this is a fantastic initiative. So you'll be hearing from me.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you. All right, folks. So just a reminder, and I'll send a summary to Graham and Jarrett and be like, hey, can you send that to the council? But we are considering our 3 goals. If you want to change your subcommittee from what you said tonight, please let us know. We will start meeting from 6 to 8 with subcommittees starting at 6 p.m. to 7 and our regular meetings from 7 to 8 starting next month. And if there are any BACs, which is board authorities or councils, that you think we should have a young adult rep on, please also send them over to Graham and or myself. And remember that per FOIA, you cannot email more than 1 council member. So you can email me, but you can email me and Sarah. So either send it directly to me or send it directly to Graham, and he'll make sure we all get it. All right. Well, thanks for going 9 over with us. Graham, I'm very sad. I'm still not accepting it. Like, I got the email earlier. I was like, nope. But I appreciate you all. Thank you again for your vote of confidence, or, you know, for me being your chair. I'm looking forward to the next year.
Thanks all. Happy New Year.
Thank you, guys.
Everyone, stay safe.
Bye.
Everybody.
See everyone.